Good evening, I'm Chris Nachkate. Welcome to APTN National News. Thank you for joining us. The Grand Chief of Southern Chiefs Organization in Manitoba was sent to hospital earlier this week after a fight outside of a bar in downtown Ottawa, APTN News has learned. The incident took place ahead of day one of the Assembly of First Nations Special Assembly in Ottawa. According to multiple sources, Daniels and two band counselors from a First Nation in Manitoba were involved. At this point, it's not clear if Daniels is still in hospital. One chief close to Daniels refused to answer questions about the incident. APTN has confirmed that Lake Manitoba First Nation Chief Cornell McLean is now the acting SCO Grand Chief. McLean, when reached via text, offered no comment, but did confirm he is acting Grand Chief for, quote, a very short term. Ottawa Police told APTN News it does not confirm incidents by names, but confirmed they were called to an address in the Byward Market area for a disturbance at 2:30 a.m. on Tuesday. A man was transported to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Repeated calls and emails to SCO Communications have not been answered. You can find more on this story on our website at aptnnews.ca. Edmonton Centre MP Randy Boissonnault has released a two-page statement on X today, formerly known as Twitter, regarding his Indigenous heritage. However, despite the length, his answers remain the same. Since stepping down as Federal Employment Cabinet Minister on November 22nd, T.R. Wheatley brings us this update.
Boissonnault was accused of shape-shifting Indigenous ancestry. As well, his co-owned business tried to access a federal grant in 2020 that was meant for Indigenous people. However, the business bid was not successful. In his latest statement, he says he was adopted by an Indigenous family where the great-grandmother on his mother's side was Cree. And according to his statement, quote, during the pandemic, my family delved further into our history, which led to my adoptive mother and brother becoming Métis citizens earlier this year, unquote. In the past, Boissonnault has called himself a non-status adopted Cree and maintains he's never claimed Indigenous status for benefit. Boissonnault's statement also saying he has sought legal counsel against his former business partner. Once elected into office, he says he left his business and his partner continued to use his name without his consent.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau attended the final day of the Assembly of First Nations meeting in Ottawa. A couple of federal party leaders also attended. They were pressed on various issues ranging from deaths by police to residential school denialism. Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet was even called out by the chief of the Kahnawake Mohawk Nation. APTN's Savannah Craig has the story.
I have been across this country and I've met with many mothers who are losing their children to your policing.
A group of mothers, including Martha Martin, confronted Prime Minister Justin Trudeau at the final day of the Assembly of First Nations in Ottawa. Martin lost her daughter Chantel Moore during an interaction with police.
How many more of our people have to die at the hands of your police?
Her son died 5 months later while in police custody.
Mothers are tired of burying their children.
Martin and other mothers asked Trudeau to meet with them and to do more to end the death of First Nations people during interactions with police.
Every day I wake up knowing that I'm never, ever going to see my son or talk to him. And his last words were, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. They killed my boy.
The crowd stood in solidarity with the mothers, cheering them after they shared their stories. Trudeau says his government will continue to address systemic racism and colonialism that exists within institutions in Canada.
No mother should ever have to bury her child, let alone 2 children. We will support the path forward that you see to make sure we create a world in which no mother has to grieve her child.
Other prominent issues brought forth to the Prime Minister and his ministers is criminalizing denialism of residential schools and unmarked burial sites.
Denying or minimizing these atrocities is a direct insult to survivors, families, and communities who continue to live with intergenerational trauma caused by these institutions.
The government did not directly respond to this. Chief of Ganassadage Victor Bonspiel demanded an apology from the feds over the 1990 Oka crisis.
We would like an open apology and written apology that you sent your army to attack our nation.
Other federal party leaders gave remarks at the AFN, including New Democratic Party leader Jagmeet Singh, who says he wants to see the Red Dress Alert System pilot project expanded.
I think the Highway of Tears in BC would be a very logical next step to get the pilot project expanded.
This year's AFN did not go without frustrations from chiefs towards Canadian leaders. Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet was called out by Ganawage Grand Chief Cody Daibo.
I welcome you to Ganawage, and we can have a conversation about what our relationship should be and how your people can start packing up.
Savannah Craig, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Leaders from the Fort Chipewyan community are also in Ottawa this week. They talked with the federal government on how to fix the contaminated dock they say is posing a health risk to residents. APTN's Chris Stewart spoke to Athabasca Chipewyan First Nation Chief Alan Adam on how the talks went.
Back in October, the Fort Chipewyan Métis Nation, the Mikisew Cree, and Athabasca Chipewyan First Nations revealed that a federally owned dock known as the Big Dock had been contaminated with toxic hydrocarbons, arsenic, and metals that were above safety standards. This was from a 2017 risk assessment that also said that the contamination would not be a health issue for humans unless the water or groundwater was ingested within 60 feet of the dock. But the members there have been using land near there for harvesting plants and recreational use.
The women, the family members, mothers, and everything are worried because of the fact that the kids go swimming down at the dock. The community uses the dock 8 months out of the year when they go out to the land, into the bush. They launch their boat from those areas.
Councillor Tammy Tuckerow, President Kendrick Cardinal, and Chief Alan Adam flew from Northern Alberta to Ottawa and spoke Tuesday to a federal standing committee on transportation, infrastructure, and communities to communicate how important it is to deal with the cleanup of the dock and area. The dock is vital to evacuation efforts in case of wildfire.
It was one of the main goals to get that on the agenda and making sure that, we from the community have a safe passage out of the community, but also to deal with some of the contamination that is there that were found, that the findings are unfortunately are there, and we have to deal with that as well.
Chief Adams says that Transport Canada has been hiding several studies of the dock since 1997.
We're talking with the federal government, and we're making sure that they're accountable for these actions, and that Transport Canada will, be held accountable and will come to the community and remediate the dock itself, because that has to be fixed up, for us to continue moving forward.
Adam believes the government will now be quick to act on undoing the damage done.
I'm quite optimistic on that notion alone, because there's going to be special equipment and machinery coming in, and it's going to be hauled into the community, and it's just not going to happen overnight. And if we're going to do it, we're going to do it properly.
In a statement to APTN, the Minister of Transport's office said, Minister Anand spoke to the First Nations to hear their concerns directly. In response to the concerns raised by the First Nations, Transport Canada will accelerate work to remediate the uplands portion of the land and will work collaboratively with the First Nations to update the 2017 risk assessment for the in-water contamination. An updated risk assessment will inform next steps with regards to remediation. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
A new safe space for Indigenous women, Two-Spirit and gender-diverse people is set to open in Brandon, Manitoba. It's part of the province's Mino Awayak Ikwayak strategy unveiled last month. At a Thursday press conference, the Manitoba government announced $500,000 in funding to support a 24/7 safe space called Franny's Place. It's an expansion of Brandon's Chelsea Safe House, which opened last May. Franny's Place will have 10 bedrooms, a number of bathrooms, laundry facilities, and a shared kitchen space, living room space, and dining room space. It will also offer a drop-in service and culturally sensitive support for Indigenous clients. The initiative is a partnership between the province, the Manitoba Métis Federation, and the Brandon Neighbourhood Renewal Corporation. Megan McKenzie is the corporation's lead researcher.
Both Chelsea Safe House and Franny's Place are designed to provide safe, supportive homes to Indigenous women who are at the highest risk of being murdered, going missing, or dying preventable deaths. In the Indigenous communities, home is more than just the structure over people's heads. Home means relationship, kinship, community, connection, traditions, ancestors, and belonging to each other. The safe houses are rooted in the 7 sacred teachings. Programming activities are based on the knowledge gathered from our interviews and the interests and needs of the women living in the homes.
We dig a little deeper in this week's AFN Special Chiefs Assembly in Ottawa with Thursday's Truth in Politics panel. We're back in about 3 minutes. Welcome back. This year's Winter Assembly of First Nations is in full swing in downtown Ottawa, and there are a lot of moving parts. Our Truth in Politics panel is here to break it all down for us. Negon Sinclair is a Winnipeg Free Press columnist, and Jennifer Leywitz is the CEO of Pasquale Strategies. Start us off tonight, Negon. For once, the Assembly of First Nations was united on something. They passed a resolution calling on Canada to launch a national inquiry into the killing of First Nation members by police. What's your take on that?
There's certainly evidence that there's a systemic problem. The problem really is that police forces are reactive and they are ground zero for a long series of issues around colonialism, institutional racism, involving a belief within the country that Indigenous peoples don't matter. So what ends up happening is that we chronically under-support, under-educate, and then of course put police officers in situations in which they just can't handle it. They don't know how to handle with the kind of care and consideration and cultural context that's necessary to be able to deal with so many of these situations. What ends up happening is they shoot first, ask questions later. And the problem is ultimately that policing has a serious systemic problem, but it's also a larger issue in terms of governments of understanding what policing is supposed to be doing. Our way of doing policing in our traditional communities would be proactive, not reactive. And that's the main fundamental problem with policing.
Jennifer, do you think an inquiry is the right way to go after all? Millions of dollars were spent on inquiries into residential schools and murdered and missing women, and those problems have not gone away.
I don't think inquiries are necessarily always a bad thing. I think that they can have their benefit in bringing some of these issues to the forefront and then giving us some groundwork or a foundation to work from in terms of addressing these issues. I absolutely think that we're in a state of emergency and a crisis right now with the amount of Indigenous people that are getting killed at the hands of police. And, that's not to say that I want to take an anti-police stance at all. I think that there's officers across the country that put their lives on the line every single day. But at the same time, we are seeing this crisis and what are the root causes? And, people are going to come in and say we need to bring in community-led solutions and things that address the root cause. And absolutely. And I think that there's multiple different things that are playing into this where, nations are being underfunded in multiple different areas for addictions and mental health and poverty that are playing into our people ending up on the street and in crisis, in literal crisis. And the police, at the end of the day, don't know how to deal with it. You can train all you want, but we also need to start building up communities so that our people are safe and not ending up in these situations where they are, at the end of the day, in a state of crisis and they need help a lot of the time. And a lot of the time that they're acting out or, finding themselves in these situations, it's stemming from trauma and abuse and addiction and really heavy issues. And it's almost like they don't stand a chance because we're not funding it properly and we're not addressing those issues properly. And it's ending up in the hands of police, which at the end of the day, it shouldn't end up in because they're not the right people to deal with it.
Niigaan, reforming First Nation child welfare came up yet again this week. What are you hearing on that file?
I'm hearing again that there is a severe block that against the child welfare decision, the way that the AFN handled, really that there was a very small amount of chiefs that were involved in the major significant portions of negotiations. And what you have is you have a significant block of chiefs, particularly in Alberta, who are just announcing outright in almost pronouncements that the AFN has been broken for so long or has so many systemic issues and simply isn't doing the service of the members. And I think that this child welfare issue is not only becoming the big tipping point of asking the relevancy of the AFN, which has been asked for a long time, but it seems to be en masse. It seems to be a major functional breakdown in the ability of the AFN to be able to do its work and advocate for chiefs. I mean, the bottom line is that the organization has been working like this for a very long period of time. The National Chief does take lead negotiations for many different policies over the years, but for some reason, this time in AFN history, things just aren't working, and people are openly talking about leaving the organization as a whole.
And Jennifer, what are you hearing from the people you work with about what should be done when it comes to reforming the way CFS issues are dealt with?
You know, what I saw after the AFN assembly in Calgary on the long-term child welfare reform, and speaking to some of the nations and the chiefs that I work with on a daily basis, is there was a lot of confusion and frustration around child welfare being at the forefront right now of the conversations, but in such an urgent way. Obviously, we know that we want to get this autonomy and jurisdiction fully back, which we have through C-92, but then also get the proper funding. And what I saw in Calgary, to be honest with you, really upset me. And I made a post on LinkedIn about this last night, that I genuinely don't think that the AFN is as effective as we initially thought it would be or could be. I think that right now we're seeing a lot of, political components being worked into this. We know back in Calgary it was being talked about, you need to rush this through because the government might change. Why are we putting the hands and the future of our youth into our federal government and political decisions that could have long-lasting impacts? And I think right now the chiefs, they want to see this advance, but I think there's a lot of confusion around what it's going to look like. And to be honest with you, are we ready? That's one of the biggest things I hear right now is, are we going to fall flat on our face? Are we being set up to fail? And are we ready for this? Because there are still a lot of issues that we need to work out in our own communities and at home that, will pour out into the way that we deal with child welfare and the effectiveness and the success rate that we actually have.
That's all the time we have. Thank you both for joining us, Niigaan and Jennifer.
Much.
Artina House is up next to take us to a community gathering for the holidays. We're back in less than 3 minutes. Stay with us. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. The CPKC holiday train rolled into Winnipeg, Manitoba on December 3rd, and 5-year-old Kingston Welsh was there to greet it. A big thank you to our APTN Grandpa and Mushum Ken Welsh for sending in those photos. For the chance to be our next photo of the day, send us your photos to share@aptn.ca. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. To the east, Fredericton -8, Charlottetown -6. 2 in Nain and Ujuak -19. -10 in Val-d'Or, Saguenay -10 as well. -1 in Sarnia, Sault Ste. Marie -3. Big Trout Lake -16, Thunder Bay -8. Thompson -19, Norway House -11. -9 in Princess Harbor, Dauphin -3. 0 in Regina, Saskatoon +1. Stony Rapids -10, Buffalo Narrows 4. To the west, Grand Prairie 4, Peace River 3. Lethbridge 7 in Sun, Calgary 7. Penticton 1, Victoria 10. Sandspit 6, Smithers 5. -14 in Old Crow, Rock River -6. -10 in Wrigley, Norman Wells -10 there. -14 in Polituck, Tuktoyaktuk minus 15. Baker Lake minus 30. Arviat minus 27. And Iqaluit minus 5. Glulik minus 21. A special community Christmas dinner was held in Vancouver that featured a Juno Award-winning blues artist. APTN's Tina House takes us to the festivities.
And everywhere we saw
As Juno Award-winning bluesman Murray Porter sang his Christmas songs, members of the urban community of the Cheslata First Nation had a chance to get together and connect over a turkey dinner put on by the Chief and Council of the nation, who traveled from their nation located in northern BC.
It's a wonderful gathering for our people when they're in the city so far from home. For us to come and do a gathering like this really touches my heart as a chief, because we get to reconnect with people, some of whom we don't know. They left our community when they were very young, and we're really getting to be to the point where we're getting bigger gatherings.
We call it Justine Peter. That's her granddaughter right there. So she's also related to you in that way. Like we're all of our parents are related to you. Like we're all first cousins to you by our mothers.
Every year, the Chief and Council get to hand out gift cards to those members that now make their home in the city, including the youngest members of their nation.
Bring a little bit of our country life to them, and our way of getting to know each other as relatives. So it's wonderful. It's Christmas time.
For many here, tonight it's all about meeting their family for the first time, enjoying a meal together and reconnecting as a community, while enjoying the music of Murray Porter.
Music is part of life, and it just made the occasion even more special for our people.
Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
And finally for us, APTN's Fraser Needham joins us now from Ottawa to tell us what will be on tonight's Nation to Nation. Fraser?
Coming up after the news on Nation to Nation, we're at the AFN Special Chiefs Assembly in Ottawa this week, where we talk to National Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Nepenak about what is happening at the Assembly and the challenges that lie ahead. AFN British Columbia Regional Chief Terry Chichi is also here to talk about divisions on the executive for allegations of a lack of consultation when the National Chief has made deals with Ottawa. And we also talked to former AFN National Chief George Erasmus about his new book, Hota Enough. That's all right after the national news.
Thank you, Fraser. And that's your evening newscast for this Thursday, December 5th. We're back again for your daytime newscast tomorrow. Be sure to join us then. From all of us here, hi miigwech, masicho. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again next day.